Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that almost every business thinks about, moving to the cloud. You hear it all the time, right? It's sold as this ultimate upgrade, this simple switch that gives you endless power and flexibility. But here's the thing. That simple switch can be hiding a massive iceberg of complexity right below the surface.
And don't get me wrong, the hype is absolutely real. The cloud has been a total game changer. It gives companies access to unbelievable amounts of computing power, storage, and software whenever they need it. You no longer have to buy and maintain these giant, expensive server rooms. That's the engine driving so much of the innovation we see today.
So, is the journey really that simple? The destination? Yeah, it's powerful. But the path to get there can be incredibly tricky. If you just leap without looking, a mission to become more efficient can turn into a total mess of runaway costs, major disruptions, and a whole lot of unexpected headaches.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll talk about the big promise of the cloud. Then we'll dig into the hidden costs, the whole question of control, the security and compliance maze, and of course, the human factor. And then, at the end, we'll map out a smarter way to make the journey.
Okay, let's get into it. To really understand the challenges, first, we have to appreciate why everybody is so excited about the cloud in the first place. The hype is there for a reason. It really all boils down to flexibility and agility. Just imagine your business is having a massive online sale. In the old days, you'd need to own physical servers that would just sit there gathering dust for most of the year. With the cloud, you can instantly ramp up your computing power for just a few hours and then scale it right back down when you're done. That ability to adapt on a dime is what lets businesses innovate so quickly.
But that amazing pay-as-you-go flexibility? Well, that leads us right to our first big challenge. The cloud isn't always as cheap as it looks. Let's talk about the reality of that monthly cloud bill. Look, not having to buy a room full of servers is a huge saving up front. No doubt about it. But other costs have a sneaky way of creeping in. You've basically traded a big, one-time purchase for a monthly utility bill. And just like with your electricity, if you forget to turn the lights off, that bill can spiral out of control.
So where do these costs hide? Well, for starters, just moving your data out of the cloud, that's called egress, can cost you. Need expert help from your provider? Oh yeah, that's a premium support service. And don't just assume your old software licenses will work seamlessly. But probably the biggest budget killer is over-provisioning, paying for way more computing power than you actually need, just in case.
And that inefficiency isn't just a few dollars here and there. It can be incredibly costly. Leaving servers running when you don't need them might seem like a small thing, but some studies show this kind of waste can inflate your cloud bill by 20%, sometimes even more. That adds up. And it adds up fast.
And it's not just about what you're paying for, it's about what you might be giving up. The next challenge is all about control. When you move to the cloud, you're essentially handing the keys to your server room to someone else. So it makes you wonder, who's really in the driver's seat here?
You have to know this term, vendor lock-in. It's what happens when all of your systems get so deeply tied into one provider's specific tools that trying to switch to a competitor becomes a complete technical and financial nightmare. It kills your flexibility, and it totally destroys your bargaining power down the road.
And then there's the question of where your data physically lives. This is called data sovereignty. Basically, the idea that your data has to follow the laws of the country where it's being stored. Europe's GDPR, for example, has really strict rules about this. If your cloud provider stores your European customer data somewhere outside the EU, you could be breaking the law without even realizing it.
So this really gets to the heart of the trade-off. With your own systems, what we call on-premise, you have total control and you can customize everything. But scaling up is tough and expensive. The cloud, on the other hand, gives you incredible, almost infinite scalability, but you lose that direct hands-on control over the hardware. And for some businesses, that's a really big deal.
Now, this lack of direct control flows right into our next big topic, security. Because in the cloud, security isn't just about the technology. It's about trying to navigate this incredibly complex and constantly changing maze of rules and regulations.
This is so important to understand. It's called the shared responsibility model. Your cloud provider is responsible for securing the cloud itself, the physical buildings, the servers, the network. But you are responsible for securing everything you put in the cloud. Your data, your applications, who has access to them. It's a partnership, for sure, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with you.
And just look at this web of rules. I mean, if you're in healthcare, you live and die by HIPAA. In finance, it's all about PCI DSS. Handling data from anyone in Europe, then you're bound by GDPR. Every industry has its own set of non-negotiable standards, and you have to prove that your cloud setup meets every single one. It is a massive job.
Okay, so we've covered technology, costs, and compliance. But honestly, the biggest challenge might not be technical at all. A successful migration depends completely on people. You can have the most perfect technical strategy in the world, but if you don't have the right skills and the right culture, it's pretty much guaranteed to fail.
So the first people problem is this massive skills gap. The use of cloud has just exploded, which has created this huge demand for experts in security, architecture, and operations. The problem is, there just aren't enough skilled people to fill all those jobs, which means there's this fierce competition for talent. The other side of this human factor is managing resistance from inside your own company. Change is hard. People will naturally worry about what they don't know, or they might even fear that their jobs are on the line. To really succeed, you have to bring them into the process, explain the benefits, give them great training, and address their fears head-on. To be honest, this part right here can be the biggest hurdle of all.
Okay, after walking through all of those challenges, you might be feeling a little nervous about the cloud. But the goal here isn't to scare you away from it. It's to prepare you, so you can navigate the journey wisely and find a smarter path forward.
For a lot of companies, the answer isn't all or nothing. It's a hybrid cloud. This strategy really does give you the best of both worlds. You can use the public cloud for the things that need to scale up and down quickly, while you keep your most sensitive data and highly specialized applications safe and sound on your own private gear. It's a balanced approach that can be a great transition or even a permanent solution.
And that really brings us to the final and most important takeaway. Deciding on the cloud isn't a simple yes or no vote. It's a deep, strategic choice. So instead of just asking, should we move to the cloud? The much better question is, how can the cloud serve our specific needs for cost, for control, and for security? Asking the right questions, that's always the first step to finding the right answer. Thanks for watching The Explainer.